Hey guys, what's up? Well, in case you haven't heard by now, and if you tune into Andre Meadows' Black Nerd Comedy's latest video, you probably have heard, if not read, the various headlines out there. And that is the fact, and the title says it below as well. Yes, Tiny Toons is coming back, but they're coming back not as Tiny Toon Adventures, but as Tiny Toons Looniversity. Now, the information that I could get, even though it's not seen here on the article here that you'll be seeing in front of me as I get ready to talk to you about this. But basically, um, the premise, from what we understand right now, and Andre even mentioned this in his video. He read it off when he was reading the article. Basically, Tiny Toons Looniversity is going to be exactly what it says. Basically, a lot of the adventures, a lot of the episodes, which is a not 2 episode, but a 2 season order by HBO Max and Cartoon Network. They Most of those adventures and episodes will take place in the Looniversity. I mean, originally Tiny Toons would go all over the place, not just be in the Looniversity or be contained within the Looniversity. They would go all over. They'd go all over the world. They'd have different variety shows, stuff like that. You name it. But specifically here, what it sounds like they're doing is they're going to make the Looniversity the prime location. And part of the premise is the Toons, the Tiny Toon characters, are going to be learning on how to be the next, Looney Tunes themselves, the next big WB Merry Melody Looney Tune characters themselves, under the tutelage and mentorship of the original Looney Tunes. Now, that's cool and everything to hear, and I'm going to bring this up for a second. Hold on. But like I said, that's all cool to hear and everything, to know that Tiny Toons is indeed coming back for a 2 season run. Now, you might be wondering why is Tiny Toons, and even before that with the revelation at Animaniacs, they even put it in their theme song, 2 seasons. Why are they getting 2 seasons each? What's going on? Why not more? Basically because of the fact that we're going to probably get 13 episodes out of Tiny Toons Looniversity, just like we're going to get with Animaniacs 2020. And the reason that is to kind of see if people will accept it. In other words, if they will, become admired by or enamored by it, whatever, attracted to it. That's the word I'm looking for. If they'll be attracted to it, if they'll become a fan of it, and if the popularity that hopefully they believe will come out of these will enable them, I should say, to probably order more seasons for the future. I don't see why that wouldn't be a possibility, seeing as though these are actually 2 shows that people wanted to see be brought back in some capacity. And now Tiny Toons is getting that option. Now, like I said, Andre mentioned in his video that the synopsis is going to evolve the characters primarily at the Looniversity, at the institution, learning about, all the zany wild takes and hijinks and stuff they need to learn and know about to be the next big Looney Tunes stars, or the next big stars of the WB, if you will. So here's what it says, and again, hopefully you'll be seeing this across the screen if you haven't seen it already. It says, and I quote, this is by Variety, "A reboot of Tiny Toon Adventures is among a number of series ordered at HBO Max and Cartoon Network." Now, this is why they talk about Tiny Toons, because they do mention some other ones. But here's where they talk about Tiny Toons, and I quote, "The new series titled Tiny Toons Looniversity, or the new series is titled Tiny Toons Looniversity. The half-hour animated show will feature characters from the original series, which aired from 1990 to 1992. The show has received a 2-season order with Steven Spielberg attached to return as an executive producer. Aaron Gibson will serve as showrunner and co-executive producer, while Nate Cash will also serve as co-executive producer. Sam Register, president of Warner Brothers Animation and Cartoon Network Studios, will also executive produce, along with Amblin Television co-presidents Justin Flavey and Daryl Frank. Sorry if I pronounced that last name on Justin inappropriately. I do apologize. But they will also serve as co-producers or executive producers along with Sam Register, who is the president of WB Animation and Cartoon Network Studios. Them being the co-president of Amblin Television will serve, like I said, as executive producers. It goes on to state that Tiny Toons Looniversity is produced by Amblin Television in association with Warner Brothers Animation. Clint Lavigne, Vice President of Television and Amblin Television, and Audrey Dale, Senior Vice President of Series of Warner Brothers Animation, will oversee day-to-day creative affairs of the series. So yeah, that's what Variety mentioned, and basically, like Andre talked about in his video, and check that out. I'll provide a link down below. Basically, its primary focus, according to the synopsis that we know of right now, is it will be contained within the confines of the Looniversity, or at least around the surrounding area or structure of the Looniversity. Now, the picture you probably see up here already of Buster and Babs. This is the picture that was presented on the Looney Tunes Instagram that Andre said he found it on, as well as, you know, basically pitched or shown to a lot of people when the news broke, or when the news was revealed that this revival was going to happen. And obviously you could tell that they're going to give the characters new designs, well, new clothing designs, but kind of still have that spiritual original, but still have that original look attached to them from the previous series. Now, we kind of get an idea of what Buster and Babs are going to look like. And Babs' outfit here, it looks very identical because we've seen her in an outfit, you know, very similar in the Tiny Toon episodes of the past. I think when they were, what was that one episode where, you know, they thought they were going to the Emmys, you know, if you will, as guests of honor, and it was just a white lie that Buster had to tell them because he needed their help taking down a mad doctor or something like that. And basically, this is an outfit. It looks very identical to what Babs has worn in that episode, as well as some other episodes. So that's kind of cool that maybe they're looking towards that to put on, to kind of dress her up in when it comes to this series. Buster, of course, looks like he's got a Letterman jacket with a white t-shirt, so a little updated look for him as well. We don't know what the other characters will look like. We could assume that Plucky might have an updated look, maybe similar. My guess is this, you know, because we know it's not the first time Buster's been in a Letterman's jacket. Check out several episodes, mostly the Acme Bowl episode. You'll see him and Plucky and Hampton in Letterman's jackets as well, along with the other characters. So it's going to be really interesting to see if maybe Plucky and perhaps Hampton will follow suit with the Letterman's outfit. You got to wonder if Babs and Shirley and Fifi will follow suit with a similar design as well. It's going to be really a spec between now and the announcement of its release date, and, you know, basically maybe the teaser or trailer we'll get in the future. It's mainly speculation as to what the other characters will look like, along with Buster and Babs, you know, and as well as there'll be speculation between now and then as to what, you know, the series is going to be like, besides the synopsis that we got. You know, you got to wonder if, you know, Animaniacs, being true to the original spirit, being true to the spirit of the original, and carrying that on into this soft reboot that they're doing, because that's what it is. You know, you have to still wonder if you're going to get a lot of the gags, you know, that you got in Animaniacs, if you're going to get them in the new Animaniacs. And it looks like you are, along with some new stuff. So, and, you know, because again, you have to wonder, is Animaniacs going to give us the wild takes, the eye-popping, the melting gag known as Lustful Melt, when one character becomes attracted and enamored, if you will, to another, and they end up melting into a puddle of goop or something like that, where either they revive themselves or somebody has to pick them up and revive them in some comedic fashion. You know, you got to wonder if Animaniacs is going to bring that to the table in these 2 seasons they got. I believe they will in some way, because I think we're already seeing that. But now you have to wonder if Tiny Toons is going to do the same things, because we know Tiny Toons had the same gags as Animaniacs did. So you have to wonder if we're going to get a lot more of that, especially if part of the premise, according to the synopsis that Andre and others have read, if they're learning all about hijinks and hilarity and all that under the Looney Tunes, I think it pretty much would. I think that pretty much, in my opinion, for the time being, answers the question that yeah, we're going to get those zany wild outtakes. We're going to get the lustful melt gag. We're going to get the eye popping, stuff. We're going to get, maybe characters shape shifting into things to, into inanimate objects or into other characters as part of the lessons. Because we know that Babs is like impersonate is basically, a master at impersonations. That's what she is, and because well, basically that's what her character was. She was a master at impersonations. So it has to make you wonder exactly how far they'll go with Babs in this series. Besides, with the exception of her doing celebrity impersonations or anything like that, but how far she'll go with maybe impersonating another character or an inanimate object or animal or whatever. And, it makes you wonder. So again, it's just like I said, between now and the release of the first trailer and maybe the first look fully of what the characters are going to look like as a whole, it's merely speculation. But yeah, it's great to know that Tiny Toons is coming back. I'm happy to see it coming back. Tiny Toons, I grew up on it back in the 90s. My sisters grew up on it. It was a show that we would all watch together. It's like, every time around 4 o'clock, 4:30, we would be right in front of that television on KTVU Channel 2, and we would watch Tiny Toon Adventures. We would watch it. We would not try to miss an episode unless something came up. We would be in front of that television every weekday, and even Saturday mornings when they did the Saturday morning deal. We would be watching Tiny Toon Adventures because it was a show we all enjoyed. In fact, I remember when it first initially debuted. It had debuted, believe it or not on the WB, not on Fox. It debuted, actually, the pilot debuted on CBS Primetime. It was presented as a CBS special presentation. And, excuse me there. And this was at a time when CBS, I think, still has some contractual agreement with Warner Brothers to air some Looney Tune-like specials in primetime or related specials in primetime, and that's how they were able to do the pilot for Tiny Toon Adventures. I also think, in my opinion, Tiny Toons was being pitched to CBS as a potential addition to the Saturday morning lineup, but I think Fox or Fox at that time, because they were up and coming, swooped in and say, "Hey, we'll pay you more money if you let us have Tiny Toons." Because, or basically if you let us have Tiny Toons on our lineup weekday and Saturdays. Because initially when it first began, it was mainly in syndication, and then the announcement came that it went to, it became basically a Fox exclusive, a Fox Kids exclusive. And like I said, I think one of the original networks pitched to get the series was CBS, thus the reason they were airing the pilot in primetime. But yeah, Tiny Toons was such a massive hit with a lot of people. I remember we went to a Blockbuster one time in Topeka, Kansas, and we bought, as a family, me and my sisters got our parents to buy us How I Spent My Vacation, which was being promoted all over the place. It didn't matter if you were watching Tiny Toons or something else. Every 15 minutes or every few commercials here and there, even in prime time, they would advertise Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Vacation. And the reason they were advertising it the way they were was because initially How I Spent My Vacation was supposed to be a theatrical release, but because the animation, I think, wasn't up to par to what a theatrical release would be like or be viewed by a lot of people that were used to the Disney style of animation at that time, the decision was, let's just put on a direct-to-video and go from there. And they kind of basically touch upon that in the movie, because you have Buster and you have Babs basically talking about, the video itself. Like, when Buster's squirting Babs with the squirt gun, basically causing her to get wet time and time again, no matter how he does it. There's a line when he's doing this, like he's got this massive wave coming at her, and he goes like, he looks at the camera, breaks the fourth wall, and says, "I do this water thing to Babsy throughout the entire video." And then there's a moment where they're falling through the sky, and they get saved by Superman, a DC licensed character who was drawn in classic Superman style. And you have both of them acknowledging, hey, what are you doing? This is our movie. And then and I think that's Buster. He's like, hey guy, this is our film, or this is our movie. And then you have Babs going like, yeah, get your own video. Oh, or something like that. And then Superman's like, hey, it's your call. Whee! Just drops him. Just drops him and all that. So, yeah, they made Superman look like a jerk in that one scene. But yeah, again, they do make fun of that, which kind of makes you think if it was going to hit the theaters, if they would have done the same thing. Like, I do this to Babsy throughout the entire theatrical film, or this whole cinematic film, or something like that. Or I just do this, like, instead of Buster saying, I do this water thing to Babsy through the entire video, if the initial line was, I do this water thing to Babsy throughout the entire movie, it makes you wonder. But, of course, How I Spent My Vacation wasn't the only thing that, sprang from the series. In fact, one of the final episodes, if not the final episode, was the Christmas episode, which was, according to the last volume in the complete series of Tiny Toons on DVD, Wonderful Tiny Toon Christmas. It premiered in prime time, but it was also serving as the finale. It was serving as the finale as well to the series. And then after that, you had the spring breakout series, or the spring break special they did, which was basically a 44-minute to hour-long Tiny Toons Toon TV special. And that was another thing about Tiny Toons. They also made fun of MTV because they did this TTV, or Tiny Toons or Toons TV episode, not once but twice, to where what they were doing was they were taking license. They had gained a license for a lot of these classic, if not up to modern songs at that time. And they would have the characters singing them. They would have them singing them basically in music video format. Like you have Buster singing Do You Love Me? You have Babs doing Respect. You have Shirley the Loon doing a parody of Nobody Comes Close to You. You have characters like Hampton doing They Might Be Giants, the Particle Man by They Might Be Giants. You have a lot of these videos. You had them basically doing music video parodies of these classic, if not up to modern songs. So what they did is they decided to expand on that with the spring breakout one. And the difference, though, was they weren't parodying any of this. They weren't. What I'm trying to say is the difference was basically they didn't utilize those classic songs of the classic songs of the 60s and 70s and 80s and all that like they had done before. No, they actually parodied a lot of the songs. They did. They actually parodied a lot of songs in that special, like Girls, Boys, Girl, Boys, where you have some kind of, sing off between Buster, Plucky, and Hampton against Babs, Shirley, and Fifi, and it's fun. It's a fun watch because you have, during this music video, you have them all dancing with their respective other, like Buster with Babs, Shirley with Plucky, Fifi with Hampton. So that was kind of cool. They even made fun of "Will You Be There" from Free Willy. There was they made fun of that. They made fun of the scene. They made fun of that iconic scene from Free Willy. They went the whole nine yards. I mean, nothing was off limits when it came to the special. And then, of course, the last special that they did, which was aired in prime time, obviously, and then direct-to-video was Night Ghoulery, which was a spooky Halloween related episode. And you could tell, and basically when you look at the intro for the Night Ghoulery special, you could tell that it was made around the time that Animaniacs was about to wrap up, because Animaniacs came out about the year after the third season. And in the intro, you see Fifi dressed up like Dot Warner. So yeah, you have moments. So yeah, basically that was the last special. And during the run, I remember reading in a magazine somewhere that they said there were plans, and I guess they shelved these plans, but there were plans initially to do a primetime spin-off of Tiny Toons called Primetime Toons. It'd basically be the same characters, but the show would be aired in prime time. I don't know exactly what happened, but that was the last I heard of it. And I guess they kind of dropped the idea. They kind of axed it and shelved it indefinitely. And we just, got, like I said, Spring Break and Night Ghoulery in its place. Excuse me there. So yeah, Tiny Toons, obviously phenomenally big, I should say, series with a lot of people. It was, like Andre said in his video, it was basically and they say it in the article, in some of the articles, it was basically a lot of young kids' first introduction to the Looney Tunes. Like, they probably heard about them, they've seen shorts here and there, but they didn't really know much about them. Tiny Toons was the show that kicked open the door to show you who these characters were, because what was great about Tiny Toons is they would actually utilize archival footage as part of the story. Like in the episode Promise Her Anything, they have not Babs, but they have Buster, who's reluctant to ask Babs to the prom, although he plans to do so. But the reason he's reluctant is because he doesn't know how to dance. So what they do is they have him go into a library. They have him go into a movie theater or a movie room within the school's library to look up some archival footage. And he picks out this movie reel of Bugs Bunny's latest or greatest dance moves. And what they show is that one dance that he does in that one short where where the doctor is trying to switch his brain out with a robot or a monkey or something like that. And he does this one dance, and that dance gets included into the plot because Buster's like, perfect, that's the best one. I'm gonna go right off the bat with that one. And they actually have the characters doing that dance, if you will, along with Bugs, if you will, at the end of the episode. What's cool about the episode as well is it does pretty much establish Fifi and Hampton as sort of an on and off item. Like they're good friends, and sometimes they're more than that. So they kind of establish that because Fifi is a little resentful of the prom and everything because nobody wants to ask her because she's a skunk. But here's Hampton. He's like when she rejects his offer and he's walking off, he just basically mentions the fact that I was just hoping you'd be my date, and bam, she just, it's like a lightning bolt. It's like Cupid just hit her, bam, and she goes right to him. She goes right to Hampton and is all cuddly and kissing on him, and it's like, okay, they're an item now. There you go. But yeah, the show was so good. It was just so good. There were things that came out of the show, merchandise wise, that a lot of people enjoyed getting. Like I said, it wasn't just like the direct-to-video movie and stuff like that. You had the NES games, you had the Game Boy games, Genesis games, you had a PlayStation game. That's as far as they went. Video game wise, up into the PlayStation era. You had dolls, plushes, things like that. You had all kinds of things. You had coloring books, you had novels, junior novels, if you will. You had comic books, apparently. They had the whole 9 yards thrown out for this franchise because it was such a big deal. So it was so huge. And when the show finally did end, of course, a lot of people were hoping they would see it again. In fact, anytime a network would pick up the license to distribute it over the air, the ratings would go up. Every time they came on, the ratings for that network at that time would go up because people love Tiny Toon Adventures. So it's great to know that Tiny Toons is coming back with Tiny Toons Looniversity. But again, the speculation between now and whenever we get the first full official look at the designs, and possibly a first full teaser or trailer, the speculation is going to be, are they going to carry that spirit of the original into the new one? And if you have Steven Spielberg involved and even some newer people involved, that want to oversee and make sure this is done right, then there's no doubt, in my opinion, that yeah, it's going to carry that spirit over. But again, you also have to wonder, are we going to get the same zany, wild outtakes and gags that we got previously, like the eyes popping out of the head, being smashed and flattened, being cut to pieces or whatever. Like I said earlier, the melting into a puddle, lustful melt gag at the attraction of one character, the attraction to a certain character by another character, and possibly being restored by themselves, by the help of another, or by the help of said character or whatever. It makes you wonder. It makes you curious if that's all going to be included. But if the synopsis, like I mentioned earlier, and Andre mentioned in his video, he read off there, is any indication, then yeah, we're probably going to see a lot of that, if not more. You do have to wonder, though, exactly, if maybe from a story and continuity standpoint, if there's a continuity, if basically this is going to set up maybe at the end of the second season, if we don't get more seasons, which I don't see why we shouldn't, because I think initially the reason they're going with the 2-season deal with both Tiny Toons and Animaniacs is to see if it will be well received enough to where they can greenlight a third season, and I think it will be. I think both shows will be, and with both shows, we'll probably get a third and fourth season ordered, probably before the second season airs. That's just speculation, though. But like I said, I think that's the only reason they're doing the 2-season deal. And I believe basically if we don't get any more seasons, which we should, you have to wonder from a continuity standpoint if this is all going to build up to them graduating and them possibly ending the series, whether it's in the second season or third season or whatever, but ending the series with the graduated Tiny Toon characters, years later, welcoming in the newest class of potential Looney Tune characters to the Looniversity. It has to make you wonder if that's what's going to happen. Well, have to, as I say in my videos, and a lot of people say in the videos, we'll have to wait and see. Have to wait and see if that happens and occurs. But yeah, it is. But overall, yeah, it's like I was saying, it's great to hear that Tiny Toons is back. They're coming back with this Tiny Toons Looniversity, and hopefully it will be good. I don't see why it shouldn't, because you're containing it within the Looniversity, which means that the stories could not just be classic Tiny Toon stories, if you will, with the mentorship of the Looney Tunes, but you might get a little bit more than that. And I think the reason they're going with the Looniversity setting is because nowadays you got a lot of shows that have a lot of their main cast teenagers, a lot of the stories taking place in the school settings, or in the settings of the schools that they attend, before venturing out to other places. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with the show. I think it's going to do great, honestly, and I don't see why it or Animaniacs shouldn't get a third or fourth season renewal after these 2 initial seasons. But it's great to see them back, and that's all I can say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on Tiny Toon Adventures coming back with Tiny Toons Looniversity. Tell me how you feel about it. What do you see coming out of this? Like, what gags do you think will come back? Do you think some of them that I mentioned will make a comeback? How do you see the whole, story playing out with this Looniversity being the centerpiece of the stories? What do you think the characters will look like besides the potential of what we see Babs and Buster looking like? What's your thoughts overall? comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. And that's all I'm going to say, guys. So till next time, stay cool, stay safe. I'm out.